Another episode here of Getting There with Guys, where we talk about the career journeys of media members, coaches, athletes, business owners, and more from upstate New York. An awesome one here. Looking forward to talking about Tamarac Baseball with Coach Kevin Onorato. Coach, for those who don't know, a younger version of you, 6, 7, 8 years old. For those who might not be familiar, where'd you grow up? What'd you want to be as a kid? Was it that same dream job you wanted when you were 18 years old?
I don't know about six or seven. I still thought I was going to be a shortstop for the Yankees. But I grew up in North Jersey. A lot of people around here know my younger brother, Chris, from the news. So we both grew up down in Bergen County, about 2.5 hours south. And, we were in sports, from kindergarten on up. And baseball was always my love. And, through high school, I started to realize I wasn't going to play for the Yankees. But found a couple of teachers and a couple of subjects that I really glommed onto. And I had that, I guess a movie or TV moment where I was sitting in the classroom and I realized, like, this is what I want to do. I want to teach. So I think I was around 16. So my old football coach, Mr. Diet, he said it. He says, you want to make a difference in someone's life, be a teacher. And I love history. And I've become a history teacher now, just like Mr. Diet. And I coach too. And I figure this was when sports tell you that you're not good enough, or you're too old, or they don't want you anymore, you find other ways to kind of stay involved or just be part of a team. And coaching kind of came naturally, I guess, because of being a teacher as well. And I coached the kids that I taught in 7th grade. Now I have them as high schoolers on the varsity team at Tamarac.
Amazing to think about that journey that those students were able to do with you from that middle school setting to now in the high school and the varsity level and everything else. I definitely want to hear the story about the first time you become a coach and those experiences. But let's go back a little bit. That moment you're talking about when you're 16 years old, you find out, okay, this is something that I'm going to enjoy, hopefully. I'm going to like being a teacher. You have to make that college decision, though, when high school ends, of where those opportunities might be the best for you. Did that decision make it in where you decided to go to college have teaching in the background? Like, did that play a huge factor in where you're going to go for the next level?
Yeah, no, I think as a sophomore in high school, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So wherever I was going to go, I knew I wasn't going to play ball, or at least, as much as I wanted to or thought I could. So I knew teaching was going to be the primary. So I just chose Elon University, which is a small college down in North Carolina. They play in the CAA. So tried to walk on there. That didn't go well. And which goes back to, I guess, my example of when someone tells you you're not good enough, and you still kind of have the itch to be a part of something. So played down rugby down in Elon for 4 years, but it was a good experience down there. They have a great teaching program. And I bounced around a little bit after graduating. I taught and coached a year in North Jersey, back where I grew up at Palisades Park High School. I was the JV baseball coach there. And then moved to Atlanta, Georgia, for a couple of years, and was just teacher down there, no coaching. And kind of felt like I was going to be moving back north anyways. Met my wife, soon-to-be wife, down there. And she's from Tamarac. She went to Tamarac High School. She's from Troy. And we met down there, and she says, I'm moving back north. And I said, all right, I'll go along too. And figuring it's closer to my folks and my brother and everybody back home. And I'm a northerner anyway. And so got a teaching assistant job at Tamarac, and to kind of make ends meet, I just tried to coach everything in every season. So I was the modified and JV football coach at Tamarac while I was a teaching assistant, and gone back to get my master's. Was the modified and JV baseball coach for several years while I was still in school, and then got a social studies teaching job at Tamarac, teaching 7th grade. And the only 7th grade social studies teacher at Tamarac, which is a small school. We're just a B-level school, and gradually kind of moved my way up to being the varsity coach on the baseball program there.
Those 3 stories, I know you told them very casually, but if you had that 3 combination of Elon, a kid from Jersey going to North Carolina, then going to Atlanta, then finding a girl from upstate New York, if that combination was a ticket at Saratoga, you'd be going to the window and cashing a lot of money, because that's beyond a long shot of those three things happening in your life potentially to work out like that. Even like the situation of you being from Jersey, going to North Carolina. Did you just Google teaching schools and just, okay, I'm going to go here? Because there's other
South.
options. South, okay.
Yeah, I Googled weather and I Googled weather and I would say the ratio, the guy-girl ratio at Elon was, I think, like 70-30. So like an ugly schlub like me had a shot. It was more of, I think I was considering Elon or Clemson, so I knew I wanted to go south. A lot of my buddies were staying local and going to school in the area. So I kind of wanted to just change it up a little bit and see if I could, just experience something new and different. And I met a bunch of awesome people in Elon, and mainly from the north. Ironically, Elon, I think, attracts a lot of Rhode Island, New Jerseyans, people from New England, some New Yorkers too. But and I met a bunch of people from the Atlanta area as well. So a bunch of my buddies, after they graduated, moved to Atlanta, and I did a year in Jersey. And I still miss New Jersey every day. I brag about how it's the best state in the 50, and my brother would probably say the same thing. But part of me just kind of likes being out of there every now and then, but going back to visit. And I went down to Atlanta to basically extend college, I think, for a few more years with my buddies. But that's where I met Kelly, my wife, and she's from Sickaway, from Troy. And she said she was going to move back up in a couple of years, so I did that too. Figuring I can't stay away from the north too much. And now that it's finally sunny outside, but we just played 13 games, and I don't know if we've had a game that was over 60 degrees. We're more than halfway through our baseball season. And I'm talking to my buddies down in Atlanta. They're like, "Oh yeah, we've been on the golf course for months now." I'm like, "I hate you."
And by the way, 13 games by May 1st is pretty good in upstate New York.
We've only had one rain out so far.
Yeah, that's not so bad. Now, look, you mentioned you wanted to be a teacher. You knew it when you were a teenager, but whether that's experience at Elon or at Atlanta, there might be a time where you land that first teaching job, or even the first time you're teaching a classroom, where some people who say they want to be teachers, they do it for the first time. They're like, no, I'm out. This is not what I thought it'd be. What was your first teaching job / experience like, and did it discourage you of all of something that you'd wanted to do?
I don't know. I don't know if you get discouraged so much that you want to reconsider. I never felt that. I was definitely discouraged, I'm sure, from time to time. I think my first teaching job at Palisades Park was, it's a tough little city school in North Jersey. It's right next to the George Washington Bridge. So, the kids are kind of rough around the edges, but they got the best stories. And they come in every day. And I mean, I think I had some professor years before that say, like, you might be the best part of their day. Just kind of keep that in mind. So, as lousy as you feel, or as lousy as some of the kids will make you feel, there's probably a handful or a couple of dozen that you're going to see that aren't as loud, that you are the best part of their day. And that that got me through that first year. And now I'm thinking about it now, and now I'm feeling bad about myself, because I'm thinking about tomorrow's Monday. I got to go back to work, and I got to deal with these knuckleheads. Now I'm thinking, like, all right, I might be the best thing that they got tomorrow. But it helps. It helps, as the year goes on and the years get longer and the days get longer. It's a nice little refresher. And I think coaching does that too. A lot of the kids that I coach, and for me and my brother, I think that was we were decent students, my brother and me, but we were there to play sports. So, if we are the carrot, I think, for the kids, whether it's in the classroom or on the ball field or on the court, you got to take advantage of that and be mindful when you're opening your mouth to the kid and talking to them and all that stuff. Like, you might be their carrot. You're the good one.
Yeah, no, the role model, the experience that when a kid comes home from school, they're going to talk to their parents about what they learned, and some kids won't say nothing, or some kids will tell you all about the teacher that you had that day. Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. So good. You're not discouraged by potential first teaching jobs. You don't have a horror story of a class or a student. That's good. Let's talk about the first time coaching though. Like whether it be at the middle school level, maybe it's a different experience. Hopefully that was as encouraging and you got exactly what you wanted out of it working with those kids, whether it be at Tamarac or I think you'd even teased it a little bit before of having an experience before you got there.
Yeah, I was the JV coach. My first job, so I was 23, and I'm teaching 18-year-olds, which is weird. And I was coaching JV, so they're like 15, 16, and we had 10 kids on a team. They were great boys. But I think I finished the season that year with 8. We played the last 4 games with 8 kids, which I don't think is legal. I don't think even in New Jersey. One kid failed off and the other kid quit. And it was just it was kind of like it was bad news bears, but they're great kids. That was my first job in coaching, figuring like not every kid really is like as jazzed about baseball as you are, man. Like you got to kind of like pass your passion on to them, and influence them that way. Cause not every kid's going to walk on the field with maybe your desire to win at all costs or, your enthusiasm for the game. So that was an eye opener there. And then my first, I think going back baseball wise, my first modified season at Tamarac, we didn't win a game. I think we went 0-14. I think I told Tom this, my JV coach, that in the first 4 years at Tamarac between modified and JV, because I moved up to the JVs, we won 4 games in 4 years. So I'm mindful of that when we have success at the varsity level, that I'm a year or two away going back to, 0-14, or 4 wins in 4 years. So I definitely don't take the wins for granted. We've been having some moderate success for the past few years now at the varsity level, which I'm very happy about, and I want to keep that growing. But I always in the back of my mind are listening to 0-14, and coming from where I played in high school, we won states my senior year in high school. We lost in the finals my junior year. We won it in my senior year. So I was used to winning, and that comes with the talented players that I had and good coaching that I had, in high school level. And I kind of want my kids to feel that, to remember that. And I did a blip a couple years ago when we lost our senior year, 2020. And I kind of was going back and thinking about how my seniors aren't going to have that season, not going to have that experience of, I always say it's riding the bus. The best part of the games usually is just the bus ride home, after a win, especially. You remember the losses too, but I always told my boys, like, whether we win or lose, we're all riding the bus home together. Like that's the biggest part of being a team, I think. Especially the wins too. I still remember the bus ride from South Jersey back north. It was like a 2.5-hour drive from the shore, and it was the best. I'm 41. I still remember that bus ride. I could tell you maybe some of the details of the game, but the bus ride was the best.
The best part about being a teammate, the best part about being an athlete at those levels, experiences like that. I love that answer about that bus ride home and everything that happens. You've talked about your players and how much they mean to you and how you've been able to be on that journey with them from being kids to young adults down. You've seen that transition. But for those who aren't familiar with Tamarac Baseball, who might be listening from outside of the capital region, whether it be in Watertown or Syracuse or Rochester, this program and this group of kids in particular stands out in any realm, whether it even be New York City, New Jersey, because you as a coach and you as your players have had to deal with things off the field that almost no one has to deal with. And it's just been time after time, these challenges off the field have been faced with your teammates.
Yeah, no. And, I try to remind the kids too, is like, you're not that special. We're going through special circumstances, but nothing more special, I don't think, than a lot of other teams in America. Speaking from the COVID and 2020 experience, we have 2 young men right now on the team who both should be seniors. One's going to graduate and one's going to graduate next year. But both are dealing with cancer situations in their own. I have another young man whose family members have just been diagnosed with cancer. So cancer was kind of been hanging over our program, say 2019, that season there. So these boys were 9th and 10th graders, my juniors and seniors. And I have a young man, Joe Carista, my senior, who's going to graduate in a couple months, was diagnosed with cancer a few years back. It was only, I think, weeks, maybe even months, a couple of months tops, after we learned that one of his classmates, Evan Franz, was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and it was cancerous. Both were in their 10th grade season, I think. I think they were 10th graders. Horrible numbers, Tom. But just the kind of, you get a punch to the gut when you hear about Evan, who was an honor student. He had a great swing. Still kind of has a great swing. He'll brag that he does. Had just. I
know Evan, by the way. He has no problem with it.
He heard that you
were
going to interview me. He's like, "Oh, I know them." But yeah, he had just a lot going for him, and all these kids do. When they're 9th and 10th grade, everything's going for them, or they've got everything ahead of them, and he had to take a detour, I guess. His parents have been great. John and Pauline have been fantastic. It's very supportive. They drive him to every practice, even we're 13 games in. Like the freezing cold practice was 34 degrees and windy, and it gets windy in Brunswick. His parents are in the parking lot waiting for him because he's just going to sit there and watch us practice and be part of the team. A few weeks after we found out about Evan, I think it was a few months actually, Joe got his diagnosis, and it was just like, this can't be like one thing after another. I really admire these boys and how they've kind of handled it. And, we've been around them a lot. But we weren't there, when they first found out, or the families, at least when they first heard the news. I don't know how their families reacted the first way. To imagine, if I ever heard that about myself or got from my kids, I don't know how I'd get up in the morning, or go to work, a job that I love. I don't know how I could do that. And these guys, both of them, and the families, the Franzes and the Caristas, have been just role model families in this area. Just the way that they've handled everything, and always positive with us. But just, I can't say enough about these people. And if anyone deserves, a break or just something good to happen to them, it's the Franzes and the Caristas.
Whether you're the Capital Region or outside of it, you heard that story for the first time. We are all rooting for them. I don't know if they, being still so young in their lives and being teenagers, understand the weight of what they've had to deal with so young in their lives, because it becomes almost normal that when you grow up and you understand this is a challenge, this is just what you're facing, maybe time will open up and understand that their teammates and the kids that have been around them, the young adults that have been around them, that having each other to go through this together can be such a powerful thing. And you as the coach and working with the parents, this is such an amazing thing that's happening, that everybody is coming together and making sure everyone supports one another. In this upcoming first weekend in 2022 in May, Red, White, and Gold Day, for those who may not know, kind of give us the insight of how people can help and learn more about these stories and the causes you and your team is behind.
Well, the day started before Joe and Evan's news. We originally, I wanted to do some kind of service learning project with the team, and just some way to kind of attract the community, because we're a small community out in Tamarac, but they're spread out so far, and the school is kind of the hub for the community. And with the weather being nice in May, and just something about a whole crowd of people on a ball field, it just kind of attracted me. So we decided to try to find something to raise money for, and just invite the community out. And the first year doing it, I think a mother and me. were planning it. I know a couple mothers were involved too, and we had to pick a cause. And I'm like, I don't know what kind of cause should we pick? And I think the first year we just picked cancer awareness, pediatric cancer awareness. And there's this great organization down in New Jersey called Go for the Goal, the number 4, Go for the Goal. And they do these events with schools and clubs and colleges where you buy a set of yellow laces, gold laces, and you just pick one game, and you and the opposing team all lace up your cleats in the same gold laces, kind of show camaraderie. And the funds raised from that will go to local hospitals in the area that help kids dealing with pediatric cancer and their families. And the Melody Center is one of those places at Albany Med that helps or works and receives funding from this organization, Go for the Goal. So we're keeping it local too, which is kind of what I like to say. And then now, of course, unfortunately, the next year after our first annual Red, White, and Gold Day, we got news about Evan, and then we heard about Joe, and now I won't ever do another cause. I was going to like pick a different cause every year and just raise money. Now we're not going to. It's always going to be Red, White, and Gold now. And for this year, we're starting to advertise a little bit more in school. People can buy laces themselves. Originally, it was just for the players, but fans can buy a pair of gold laces for $5, and they can wear their gold laces that day. We're going to just be selling, paper ribbons at school for $1, so the kids will get at least awareness of pediatric cancer at school. I don't think Tamarac as a community needs to be reminded about pediatric cancer just because of these two young men and their stories and how much we've been, advertising and how involved they are with not just baseball, but wrestling and football and basketball. The coaches at Tamarac in all those sports are fantastic when they work with Evan and Joe and just bringing more and more awareness to pediatric cancer. But we're going to be playing Averil Park, and George Brooks is great about supporting the cause as well. So they're going to be coming. They're going to be wearing their gold laces that day. The softball teams are going to be playing games at the same time. The baseball guys are going to be playing. I think they're going to be wearing their gold laces. So I'm just inviting everybody, in the capital region, if you want to make a trek. I'm hoping the weather's going to be nice on Saturday the 7th, that we'll have food and music and raffles, and we got baskets and all sorts of auction. We're going to be auctioning stuff off, and the proceeds just go to this Go for the Goal and pediatric cancer.
For more information, if you're watching on our video side, on our below ticker is how you can find out how you can be a part of it and join in the cause. If you're listening on our audio side, just go to our audio description to find out more information how you can go out and support Red, White, and Gold Day, Tamarac Baseball, and Tamarac Athletics. The podcast is getting there with us. I wish I could end there. I want to break down the game. I want to talk about the matchups, the lineup, and everything else. I'll get all that stress off. I'll let your brother ask you all those questions probably as we lead up to the weekend here. Instead, let's do this. The podcast is getting there with guys where we talk about career journeys. You've shared some of yours involving a teacher, involving a coach, involving your players. Let's close with this. If someone's listening, maybe it could be one of your players right now who wants to be a teacher or wants to be a coach. What's the best advice you could offer them? Whether it be coach, teacher, you can do both. You can do two separate ones if you want. The best advice to get where you are, whether you're Coach Onorato, Mr. Onorato, Kevin, however you want to phrase yourself at the end.
Yeah, I think even if you're going to coach, you're going to teach. Coaches are teachers. I've heard other coaches say that. Go back to Mr. Diet, my old football coach, but my old social studies teacher. He almost, I think, insisted on being called Mr. Diet. Even we called him that on the field. I walk around at school, and all the other teachers that coach in Tamarac, we're always Coach. I'm Coach O. I think even some of my students call that, but I kind of like the idea of. He always corrected us too, Coach Diet. He's like, no, Mr. Diet. So I don't know if it was like he wanted the respect, but I think it was almost like reminding us. It's like, no, I'm a teacher first. I'm your teacher. So I kind of like that teaching leads to coaches, I think, and the more coaches we can get from the schools, I think is great, because you're in the halls with the kids, you're in the halls with your players. But I think for a kid who's going into teaching, just get involved as much as you can. I think, the 7:15 bell, to when we get out at 2:11, and if you're in your car at 2:30, like what are you doing there? At some point, I know COVID kind of threw us for a loop, and it's kind of like we have to stay away, distance, and all that stuff. But I think that you can find ways to get involved with your school. As a teacher, you make more impacts on students that maybe aren't in your classroom, and that kind of helps with being a coach too. If one of my players says he wants to coach, and I have a couple of former players coming back to help me as a assistant and all that stuff, and that part of me, that's like the greatest. That my enthusiasm, my passion, whatever, has kind of maybe trickled down to them, or they've always had it and they just found someone in some way that they can continue it. But I would say to a player who wants to coach, this is being part of a team is the greatest. And I always say that baseball is the greatest individual team sport, because you're riding a bus and you're sitting on a bench with your teammates, but at the same time you go out there and you are the only one on the mound, or you are the only one in the batter's box, and everybody else in the dugout and everybody else on the field is watching you. So I miss being part of the team. I miss the bus rides, and I miss sitting in the dugout and fooling around with the guys. Being a coach is like I can do that again, and it's a different type of pressure. I'm not in the box and I'm not in the mound, but I'm watching a 16, 17-year-old version of myself all over again doing it. And that's just the coolest thing, especially when you see them work very hard in the off season. You see them work, at practice, and then you see them have success on the field. That's really the greatest too. So I would say to a former, any player, try to get in and coach somewhere. We were just at opening day in Brunswick, Little League, and three of my varsity guys are coaching a T-ball team this year. I question the parents of those kids. You're going to leave those three knuckleheads in charge of your sons and daughters, but these boys are just loving it. I've got things from the parents of these T-ball kids too. So I think the bug is getting in them too. I think they just like being around guys. It's the best.
Friday, May 6th, Saturday, May 7th, Red, White, and Gold Day. Support Tamarac Baseball. I'm so glad we were able to do this. Looking forward to continue to root on your players and your school for the future. Coach O, Mr. O, Kevin Onorato, whatever he wants to go by. I appreciate you doing this. I know how crazy it is during the season that you're able to squeeze in some time. I got you on your off day. Thank you so much for doing this. Best of luck. Just remind your brother you got on here getting there with guys before he did. That's the true bragging right.
Did
this
I
whole
really?
thing. Yeah, that's true. I'll get him on for Cortland Ithaca. Right. He's scheduled for November. I got to get him 6 months in advance before he comes on the show. So.
Yeah, right. Well, I appreciate you having me on, guys. I really do.
No doubt. I'll catch you later. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, man. Be good.